The site, named after its discoverer, is still the only known painted cave with an entrance beneath the sea.
If you haven't heard about the ancient cave painting that just flipped human history on its head,
Must have been another species of human who created these particular artworks in the west of Spain.
well, you're in for a ride. Archaeologists just uncovered something so old, so unexpected, that it's making experts rethink everything we thought we knew about early humans.
We've dated it to 45,500 years ago.
What does this mean for our past? How did we miss this for so long?
The cave paintings illustrate several women being taken to a mysterious-looking craft.
I've dug into the details, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear this. Let's get into it. 1. The Hall of Bulls. Thousands of years ago, in what is now southwestern France, a group of early humans decided to turn a cave into their personal art gallery. And not just little doodles or handprints. No, they went all out, covering the walls of a massive cave with enormous, lifelike images of animals. I'm talking bulls the size of trucks, elegant horses, and even a lone bear, all brought to life with nothing but natural pigments and some seriously impressive artistic skills. This place is now known as the Hall of Bulls, and it's one of the most jaw-dropping examples of prehistoric art ever discovered. The whole thing came to light in 1940, thanks to a teenage boy, his friends, and most importantly, his dog.
Discovered by a local teenager and his dog, Robot. The walls were painted around 17,000 years ago, making them one of the oldest collections of cave paintings in the world.
Marcel Ravidat was just wandering around when his pup took a tumble into a crevice. Like any good dog owner, Marcel rushed to help, but instead of just pulling his furry friend out, he and his friends stumbled upon something much bigger. At first, they thought they'd found some kind of secret passage to a nearby manor, but when they took a closer look, they realized the walls were covered in ancient paintings. Once word got out, experts rushed in, including Abbé Henri Breuil, who sketched out as many of the paintings as possible. What they found was nothing short of spectacular. Over 600 paintings sprawled across the walls, featuring massive animals, aurochs, stags, horses, and that lone bear.
Cave, called the Hall of the Bulls, has a painting of a bull that is 5.2 meters long. It is the largest cave painting of an animal ever discovered.
One of the bulls alone stretches over 5 meters long, making it the biggest known animal painting from prehistoric times. These weren't just crude stick figures either. The artists used a technique called twisted perspective, where the bodies of the animals are drawn from the side, but their horns face forward, creating an almost three-dimensional effect. It was like the special effects of the Paleolithic era. No fancy brushes, no store-bought paints, just minerals, charcoal, and whatever they could mix with animal fat or saliva to make it stick. Some paintings were made with brushes fashioned from animal hair, while others were literally sprayed onto the walls using hollow bones. But why go through all this effort? No one knows for sure, but there are some solid guesses. Some experts think these paintings had a ritualistic purpose, maybe tied to hunting magic, kind of like ancient humans painting what they hoped to catch for dinner. Others believe this was a form of storytelling or communication, a way to pass down knowledge about the animals they lived alongside. Either way, it was clearly important to them. And it's mind-blowing to think about how much time and effort they poured into this underground masterpiece. 2. The Animal Kingdom. Tucked away in southern France near Vallon-Pont-d'Arc, there's a cave that sat untouched for tens of thousands of years, hiding something extraordinary. It wasn't just a random hole in the ground. It was an ancient art gallery, sealed off by a landslide that acted like nature's own security system.
For more than 20 years, it was accessible to the public, until increasingly visible damage from mold and bacteria forced the authorities to seal it off. But these paintings are now thought to be damaged beyond repair.
When it was finally discovered in 1994 by Jean-Marie Chauvet and his team, they found themselves staring at artwork that had been perfectly preserved for around 36,000 years. That's more than twice as old as the famous Lascaux paintings.
Hundreds of images adorn the walls, most of them animals. Drawn with charcoal and red ochre, they're surprisingly sophisticated.
Inside the Chauvet cave, over 300 paintings cover the walls, showcasing a mix of familiar animals and some unexpected choices. Most ancient cave art focuses on animals humans used for food: bison, deer, horses. But the artists of Chauvet, they went rogue. They painted lions, bears, and rhinoceros. Big, dangerous predators that you wouldn't exactly want to run into during a morning stroll. Some researchers think this means the paintings had a deeper purpose, maybe tied to rituals or early beliefs. Maybe they were honoring these animals, maybe they feared them, or maybe they were just flexing their art skills. Whatever the case, these weren't just doodles. They were intentional, detailed, and surprisingly advanced for the time. Speaking of technique, these prehistoric artists knew what they were doing. They didn't just slap some pigment on a rock and call it a day. They scraped the walls smooth before painting to make the images stand out, used shading to create a sense of depth, and even placed paintings in spots where firelight would flicker across them, making the animals seem like they were moving. Some of the most striking pieces include the lion panel, where a group of lions seems to be mid-hunt, and the panel of horses, which captures them in stunning detail. There's even a section featuring reindeer, showing just how many different species shared this ancient world with early humans. But it wasn't just animals. Chauvet Cave also has geometric shapes and handprints, suggesting that art wasn't just about capturing the world around them. It was about something more. Maybe these symbols were an early form of communication, or maybe they were just humans being humans, leaving their mark to say, "I was here." Third Cave of the Hands. In the heart of Patagonia, Argentina, there's this old spot called Cueva de las Manos, or Cave of the Hands, where people thousands of years ago left their mark on the world. It's not exactly a traditional cave, but more like a rock overhang that acts as a canvas for some of the most ancient and unique art you'll ever see. Found in 1941 by a rancher named Hector M. Gutierrez, the place is home to rock art that dates all the way back to between 7,300 BC and 700 AD. It's one of the oldest collections of art in South America, and the surroundings of the cave make it feel even more meaningful. The artwork there is pretty incredible. One of the standout features is handprints, over 2,000 of them scattered around the cave. But they're not just regular handprints. The way they were made was by spraying natural pigments around hands pressed against the rocks, leaving a negative stencil behind. But the hands aren't the only thing on the walls. The artists also painted animals like guanacos, rheas, and felines. These animals were a huge part of life for the people back then, so it makes sense they'd be featured in the art. There are even some hunting scenes, with people and animals locked in action, probably showing how the people hunted and lived off these creatures. And it wasn't just animals. The artwork also has all these zigzag patterns and other weird geometric shapes, hinting that there's probably more going on than we can guess. What's pretty wild is that you can see the art evolve over time. Some of the earlier paintings look more realistic, while later works get more abstract, almost like they were pushing boundaries or experimenting. And if you look closely, you'll see that some of the images overlap, which means different groups came through and added their own art on top of what was already there, creating this layered history of art, kind of like a time capsule of creativity. To make this art, the people used some pretty earthy materials, things they could find in nature. They used iron oxides for the reds and purples, kaolin for whites, nitrojarosite for yellows, and manganese oxide for black. They'd grind these up and mix them with other materials to make the paint stick to the rocks. Fourth, oldest animal painting. In Sulawesi, Indonesia, some caves have been hiding a major surprise for researchers. Some of the oldest cave art ever discovered. People used to think that cave art began in Europe, but turns out the story starts much earlier, and in a totally different part of the world. One of the big discoveries was in Leang Karampuang Cave. In July 2024, researchers found a painting that's at least 51,200 years old, which is crazy old. The painting shows three human-like figures gathered around a big red pig, measuring about 92 centimeters by 38 centimeters. It's painted in dark red, and the whole scene looks like some kind of narrative. Yeah, these early humans were telling stories through their art, which is way earlier than anyone thought. Before this discovery, researchers had already found some art in other Sulawesi caves, like in Leang Tedongenge, where there was a painting of a Sulawesi warty pig that was at least 45,500 years old. Then there's Leang Bulu Sipong 4, where some more warty pig paintings were found, dating back around 43,900 years. So, Sulawesi is quickly turning into the go-to place for ancient cave art in Southeast Asia. How do researchers figure out how old all these paintings are? They don't just guess. they use some pretty advanced methods. For example, there's this technique called laser ablation U-series imaging, where lasers are used to analyze deposits of calcium carbonate that formed on top of the paintings. This helps them get a more accurate age for the artwork, which is a lot better than just guessing based on the art style or the materials used. 5. Amazon's ancient rock art. Out in the Amazon, in a remote part of Colombia, there's a place called the Serranía de la Lindosa region that's home to one of the largest and oldest collections of rock art in South America. This place is a treasure chest of ancient paintings that tell us a lot about the people who lived there thousands of years ago and their world. The paintings stretch across nearly 13 kilometers of cliff faces near the Guayabero River, so getting there isn't exactly a walk in the park. First, you take a 2-hour drive, then a 4-hour trek to reach the spot. But once you get there, you're in for a trip through time. The art was first discovered between 2017 and 2018, but it wasn't until later that we started hearing about the full extent of what's been found. What's so special about these paintings is that they show how early Amazonian people lived, what they believed in, and their interactions with both animals they shared the land with and some giant creatures that are long gone. The paintings themselves cover a wide range of subjects. There are human figures doing everything from hunting to dancing, showing just how much movement and life were part of their world. But what's really striking is the animals they painted. You'll find depictions of creatures that still roam the Amazon, like deer, tapirs, and jaguars. But then, there are also these huge extinct animals that no one could have seen in person, like mastodons, giant sloths, paleolama, and even Ice Age horses, all done in impressive detail. Some of the horses are shown with their manes, showing that the artists had a real eye for detail. The technique they used to create these works is also pretty clever. The artists mostly used reddish pigments, likely from natural minerals like iron oxide. It's believed that they would smooth out the surfaces of the cliffs using fire to make the paintings pop a little more, probably to help the colors stand out and make their artwork easier to see. As for what the paintings mean, it seems like there's a lot going on. Many of the images show humans with their arms raised, surrounding large animals, maybe as a sign of reverence or worship, possibly suggesting that these animals were highly significant in their culture. Some paintings even hint at hallucinogenic plants being part of their rituals, possibly pointing to some kind of shamanic practices. There are also a lot of geometric shapes and handprints, which could be a way to express everyday life or spiritual beliefs. 6. History of humans. The Magura Cave in northwestern Bulgaria is like a time machine that lets you step back 10,000 to 8,000 years into the past. Located near the village of Rabisha, this cave is home to one of Europe's most significant collections of prehistoric rock art, with over 750 different images scattered across its walls. The cave stretches for 2.5 kilometers and has these deep chambers that have kept the temperature stable at a cool 12 degrees Celsius for thousands of years, making it a perfect home for the paintings to survive. What's so special about the art in Magura Cave is that it gives us a peek into the world of early humans in this region, showing everything from their daily lives to their beliefs. The artwork is divided into different themes, and you'll see all kinds of stuff if you look closely. There are anthropomorphic figures, think human-like shapes, often in some sort of action, maybe doing a dance or performing a ritual. Then there are the zoomorphic figures, showing animals like deer, bears, and birds, which were probably really important to these people for food, or even spiritual reasons. But it's not all animals and humans. You'll also spot geometric shapes, zigzags, circles, and T-shapes, which might have been used for things like counting or keeping track of important dates. Among the many scenes in the cave, one of the most striking shows a fertility dance. This isn't just a random scene. It suggests that the people in this area had some pretty deep spiritual beliefs. They probably believed in nature spirits or deities that controlled things like fertility and hunting. And this dance could have been a way to honor them or ask for their blessings. There are also hunting scenes, which aren't surprising since hunting was essential for survival. It's clear that the paintings weren't just for decoration. They had a purpose. Some of the symbols might even represent a very early form of a solar calendar, showing how the people kept track of seasons and time. 7. Hunting scenes. Serra da Capivara National Park, located in the northeastern part of Brazil, is a massive and stunning spot that's not just about jaw-dropping landscapes, but also packed with ancient history. This UNESCO World Heritage Site, which was established in 1979, covers around 129,140 hectares of land in the semi-arid Caatinga region of Brazil. Picture dry, rocky plains, towering mountains, and deep valleys stretching for miles. This park is a serious look into the past, where nature and history collide. Inside the park, there are over 1,300 archaeological sites, and the star of the show is the prehistoric rock art. Some of these paintings are so old, they date back anywhere from 50,000 to 30,000 years ago, which makes Serra de Capivara one of the oldest places with rock art in the Americas. You'll find images carved into the rocks that show what life was like back then. Animals like deer, birds, and other creatures roaming around, and humans involved in activities like hunting and socializing. There are also geometric patterns scattered throughout the paintings, probably symbolic of something important, though no one knows for sure. The artwork doesn't just tell us about the animals and people of that time. It also gives us clues about how these early humans lived and what they believed in. You can see that they were living in complex social groups, possibly hunting together or having gatherings. And some of the images might have been tied to spiritual beliefs, like rituals or practices related to survival, nature, or hunting. 8. Ancient cattle and rituals. Las Gil is one of those places where the past really comes to life. Situated about 50 kilometers from Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland, it's a remote spot surrounded by granite hills and dry, dusty landscapes. The name Las Gil translates to Camel's Water Hole in Somali, a nod to how important water sources were for the local livestock. What makes this place even more special is its rock paintings, which were discovered back in November 2002 by a team of French archaeologists. They found a series of caves with some of the best preserved rock art in Africa, dating back between 5,000 to 11,000 years. What makes these paintings stand out is the way they show the lives of the people who lived there. The artwork mainly focuses on animals, especially cattle. These cows aren't just for food. They're decked out in ceremonial robes, which shows how significant they were in the community's rituals and daily life. It's clear these people were really into their livestock, and the cows are often shown in ceremonial patterns, possibly linked to some kind of spiritual or ritualistic meaning. Alongside the cattle, you'll also see representations of dogs, giraffes, antelopes, and other wildlife that once roamed the area. 9. Stone stories. The rock art sites of Tadrat Akakis in southwestern Libya are like an open book of the past, written across sandstone cliffs and rocky landscapes. Stretching over 32,000 square kilometers near the town of Gat, this place is like a massive outdoor gallery that showcases thousands of prehistoric paintings and carvings. The art here goes back as far as 12,000 years, giving a glimpse into the lives of the people who lived in the Sahara, when it was much wetter and bustling with life. The site wasn't widely known until the early 20th century when it was first documented, but it wasn't until the 1980s that people really started to dive into the history of these artworks. And in 1985, Tadrat Akakis was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List for its cultural importance. The area is huge, with dramatic landscapes full of deep valleys, towering cliffs, and cool rock formations sitting right next to the Tassili Najer site in Algeria. The artwork here isn't just pretty to look at, it's a history lesson. The paintings and engravings can be split into different periods, showing how the people and the environment changed over time. The wild fauna period features now extinct animals like elephants, giraffes, and hippos, proof that back then, the Sahara wasn't the dry desert it is now, but a thriving habitat for wildlife. Fast forward to the Roundhead period, and we start seeing human figures, though they're not quite like us. These people are drawn with round heads and no faces, possibly representing early spiritual or ceremonial figures. Then came the Pastoral period, where you start seeing domesticated cattle appear in the art, hinting at how life was shifting toward more pastoral living. Humans with spears show up, often in scenes that seem tied to cattle ceremonies. By the Horse period, horses had entered the scene, along with chariots, bringing a new dynamic to life in the region. And as time went on, camels became more prominent, especially in the Camel period. As the climate grew drier, and trade and transport needed these sturdy animals to thrive. 10. The Aboriginals. Ubir is a must-see spot in Kakadu National Park, Northern Territory, Australia. It's home to some of the oldest and most significant Aboriginal rock art, with paintings that could be up to 30,000 years old. This site gives a glimpse into the cultural and spiritual life of the indigenous peoples who have called this place home for millennia. Located in the East Alligator region of Kakadu, Ubir is known for its rugged rocky outcrops and shelters. The view from here overlooks the lush Nadab floodplain, adding to the spot's historical vibe. Over thousands of years, the rock surfaces have been painted and repainted, serving as a canvas for storytelling and passing down traditions. The artwork at Ubir can be divided into a few different periods based on style. In the earliest period, the pre-Estuarine period, which dates from around 40,000 to 6,000 BC, the paintings are simple and use red ochre. You'll find handprints and images of extinct animals. Some of these figures are believed to represent the Mimi, spirits that taught the ancestors how to hunt and paint. Moving into the Estuarine period, the art gets more detailed. You'll see dynamic human figures and animals, including the famous rainbow serpent, a key character in Aboriginal mythology. Then there's the freshwater period, which features more modern depictions of animals and scenes that reflect the Aboriginal way of life. A few standout paintings at Ubir include a red figure of the Tasmanian tiger, which went extinct on the mainland over 2,000 years ago. This painting is a reminder of the ancient history here. There's also a beautiful painting of a long-necked turtle in orange and red, symbolizing the respect Aboriginal people have for the animal that provided food for them. Other artworks include depictions of Namarkon, a lightning spirit holding a band of lightning, and the tall, thin Mimi spirits believed to have created some of the artwork in hard-to-reach places. 11. The Deer Cave. Grotta dei Cervi, also known as the Cave of the Deer, is a hidden gem in the Apulia region of southern Italy, not far from Porto Badisco. It's famous for its ancient rock paintings, which go all the way back to the Neolithic period, around 6,000 to 1,000 BC. Discovered in 1970 by a group of speleologists, the cave turned out to be home to one of the biggest and most important prehistoric art collections in Europe. The cave is about 15 kilometers south of Otranto and is tucked into a karstic landscape, which means it's full of limestone rock formations. The cave itself stretches over 1,500 meters with winding corridors and chambers that feel like something out of an adventure story. The artwork inside gives us a glimpse into the lives and beliefs of the people who lived here thousands of years ago, and it's pretty clear this place was a major cultural hub. Inside there are around 3,000 paintings, mainly done in two colors, red ochre and black pigment. The red ochre was used to create detailed scenes of daily life, and the black pigment, which came from bat guano, helped craft more abstract shapes. The most common themes in the artwork are hunting scenes, which makes sense since hunting was such an important part of Neolithic life. There are images of hunters with deer and dogs, some of which seem almost alive, as though they're caught in mid-movement. Then there are these strange humanoid figures, often ghostly or anthropomorphic, that give off a mysterious vibe. And scattered among everything else are geometric shapes like spirals, labyrinths, and concentric circles. These abstract designs seem like they might have been part of some deeper spiritual or symbolic language. Do you think there's other cave paintings we haven't even found yet? Maybe the past humans are trying to communicate with us.